Just like magic, you all just appear on the screen.
Good morning.
Hey, Andrew, how are you?
Good
Doing
morning,
well.
everybody.
Hey, Judge, I appreciate you sending that email to the AD for us about Jared. Good for Jared.
Yeah, it takes one for the team.
Jared is going to remain our citizen board member at the Bluegrass Area Development District.
Here's our final board member coming on.
Hear me okay today, Andrew?
Yes, much better.
Good morning, Gina.
Good morning. How are you?
Good. We're glad to have you as a proxy today.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Well, we're all here, we're live, and we're recording.
Okay, I'm going to crank up my volume just a little bit so I can hear you. Good. If that being the case, Andrew, why don't we go ahead and call our meeting to order? Under roll call, if we could indicate that Gina is proxy for Dr. Hub today, and otherwise we have a full body of commissioners here. Scott and Jessica sent us the copy of the minutes of our December 2nd meeting. If there's a motion for approval of those minutes.
I reviewed those minutes and would like to make the motion to approve as presented.
Thank you.
Second those.
Thank you. If there are no questions, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And are there any opposed? Thank you. Minutes are approved. Scott, first, before we actually jump into the meat of the agenda, I know that that Georgetown Scott County Revenue Commission has joined the ranks of those organizations who have been affected by COVID-19. And how are you all doing with that first, Scott?
We're doing well. Everyone other than the person who was initially exposed has tested negative. Our 14-day quarantine period ends this Friday. I've continued to come into the office by myself periodically, pick up the mail, get it sorted so that when everybody comes back on Monday, well, I say everybody, we'll be on an AD rotation for the 3 days next week and for the near future for that matter. But everyone's doing well. The person that actually, when I spoke to them last week that tested positive, their symptoms had at that point actually worsened a little bit. But it's my understanding they've gotten better. So we're hoping to get everything back in line and back rolling Monday morning at 8 a.m.
Good for you. Thank you for that update. Scott, as we move into the agenda, it looks like we've got some budgetary items to discuss today. Primarily your mid-year budget adjustment for presentation and discussion and hopefully approval. And then the additional item of the contribution for the relocation project. So if I could turn it over to you for that, we'll be glad to start that discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to share a screen here. And everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. So this is our mid-year budget adjustment that I've put together. And this is a two-part this year, as you can see from the 2 bullet points on the agenda. One is going to deal with the overall costs of the relocation and then the normal costs that have changed or that will be changing moving forward for the next 6 months of the fiscal year. So what you have here in column H is the budget you approved in June that took effect July 1st of 2020. You've got, of course, here in the next column, some footnotes if you want to go to that tab and see more detail on that. But this is what I am proposing here based on the information we have. And I'm going to scroll down past the contribution point so we can just talk about expenses. The main thing, of course, here is the 3% raises you approved a couple months ago. This is the additional cost over the next 6 months, plus it actually took effect with the first pay period in November. So that will be an adjustment for that. Down here we have a minus. This is what we're going to save on our AT&T phone bill by switching to VoIP over the next 6 months at the new location. The next item here is $240. We're giving up our bulk rate permit as we're no longer mailing tax forms. We do have a slight increase here, $610. This is a Thomson Reuters subscription for some of Jessica's efforts. She could probably explain a little bit better what that tool is, but I know it's been very invaluable to her efforts.
Yes, well, Andrew and I, as we've developed or we're working to develop letters for our collection efforts, legal collection efforts, we thought it would be valuable to get this subscription, which is Kentucky Collections. And it's a monthly publication that's updated with all the most recent pressing case law regarding collection efforts. And we are using it to compile those template letters so that we can begin civil action, hopefully very soon.
So that's been a very invaluable tool, and on a monthly subscription basis, they auto bill to our Visa card. So you'll see those expenses, whoever's signing those checks when we reconcile with the monthly Visa bill, but it's money well spent. This $2,100 minus, this is what we're going to save on internet fees by switching to qx.net, which by the way is hot at our new location. They came and installed it yesterday. $600, we're anticipating an increase over the next 6 months. We want to add 4 more monitors to the desktops. So all 3 of our analysts and our admin have 2 screens. Jessica and I currently have this. This really helps speed up the process when you're looking at the tax system and perhaps an image of the tax return that actually came in, or a spreadsheet or some other documents when you're trying to audit the returns. The next item is rent here. Obviously, we've been paying rent at both locations since October. And then, of course, hopefully we'll be moving in soon. And this will include the $2,000 a month we're paying to the water company moving forward. Highlighted here in yellow is the $73,000 that we're currently sitting at for what we're projecting to be the total cost for the relocation. We'll handle that in a minute. There are going to be some policy upgrades to our business insurance. I've spoken with Lewis Wolf about this. I've got to get him some additional information. That may be a little high, but I'm estimating potentially that cost over the next 6 months. And then this is something that's new, $1,500, and this is based on Arlene Wilson had given me some information about the service that you all use at City Hall. Because this is a much larger space, multiple restrooms, things of that nature, we'd like to have a couple hours a week of janitorial service, as it is a much bigger space than we're used to trying to take care of ourselves. If you all would allow us to do that. Also baked into that money over the next 6 months will be a deep clean. Once the construction is finished and all the contractors are out of our hair, we will need a deep clean. There's a lot of cobwebs and bugs, and there will be a cleaning involved with the contractor, but that's not going to be a deep clean that we'd like to have before we move in. So that takes us down to the total mid-year budget adjustment of $99,275.65. Now, if you take out the $73,000 of the project relocation, you come back up here, that's actually a $26,000 increase over your normal monthly contributions, which will be spread out over 6 months. So what I'm recommending today and throwing it open for discussion is that either this month or next month, we'll do a one-time contribution of $73,000 into the expense account as these bills start to come in. And then a normal beginning January 1st and proceeding for the next 6 months, a new slightly increased monthly contribution rate as we normally would. So with that, I'll throw it open for discussion. If anyone has any comments or concerns about that.
Judge, Gina, any comments or concerns with what you've seen?
No, none here.
None here.
Yeah, I think it's a real neat solution, Scott, to do a one-time expense for the building project, and that leaves you a more a budget product that's easier to present with clarity over the next 6 months of this budget year. Structurally, I think you've approached it right. Are we in a position to have a motion and a second and approval of this amended budget, Scott?
Yes, we are.
I'll make the motion to approve the budget amendment as presented.
Thank you,
I'll
Judge.
second that.
Thank you, Gina. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. And are there any opposed? If not, Scott, we can move forward to the relocation project. I did, as I thumbed through this, appreciate the multiple tabs, Scott. So you can separate out each component of the relocation if you want to look at that additional detail.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I thought this made the most sense when I put it together. You kind of get a good summary and then the detail deeper down in the tabs. From what I presented to you at the last meeting, this hasn't changed very much. You can see 72,296 is the current total based on the numbers I have right now. I just went ahead and rounded up to 73,000 to give us about a $700 cushion for possible unanticipated expenses. Hopefully some of these expenses will come down, but it's always possible they could go up. The only thing that's changed since last time is over here in new equipment and furnishings. I have met at the site with our signage vendor, and I've got some quotes here for stenciling both of the doors. We'll have a sign down by the road, and there's also a little plaque by the main entrance for the taxpayers. So we've got some numbers there, and I've upgraded that. But everything else, it has not changed. All of these renovations, the security mods, that's the same numbers I presented last time. You already approved the VoIP telecom. The moving information hasn't changed. So it's really just these new equipment and furnishings. I also added a $300 estimate for a duplex phone, which we'll have in our conference room at our conference table. But other than that, that's the only changes to that. And that's how I arrived at the $73,000 number. And that's really the only update I have on the cost at this point.
Okay, it's well presented and seems reasonable. Is there a motion for approval?
I will make a motion to approve as presented.
Second that.
There's a motion and a second. If there are no questions for Scott or Gina, not Gina, excuse me, Jessica. If there are no questions for Scott or Jessica, all in favor say aye. And are there any opposed? Then that is approved.
Thank
Scott,
you.
thank you. I know that you all are excited about that move, and I can tell you that your cousins down at City Hall are very jealous about the new digs, but we'll get there someday when we grow up. Scott, number 4 on your agenda, you've presented us with the documentation for a refund.
That's correct. We only have one. The attachment that I sent you lays it all out. It's $15,000, $168.91. This is a little bit different refund than we normally see. Part of it is net profit and part of it is payroll. This particular company, they had a significant net loss for the tax year that was reported. So their estimated payments exceeded the actual tax liability for the year, which was 0. Now, and we're probably going to see more of this due to COVID, but this particular company has requested the full overpayment in a refund. Years past, they might forward part of it or all of it to a future tax period to keep on deposit, but due to what I would anticipate would be understandable cash flow issues, they're wanting their refunds. So you can see the city county school board breakout on the net profit. There also is a small $1,411 payroll refund, and that is an error in withholding on their part. They had an employee who lives in Georgetown, but who actually works exclusively in Lexington. So they mistakenly withheld school board tax for Scott County, and that's why it's only a school board refund on that piece. So done a full audit of the account. We find it to be in order, and we recommend to the commissioners that they approve this refund over $10,000.
Thank you. Any questions for Scott on this refund? Is there a motion for approval?
I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented.
Second that, please.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any opposed? Scott, while you're on the topic of that particular refund, and I know we now move into general discussion on the agenda anyway, do you expect for us to see an increase in people who have been working remotely and may decide to seek refunds if their remote work was done from a home outside of Scott County?
Yes, sir, that's definitely going to be an issue moving forward. The Kentucky Society of CPAs had their annual conference last week, and typically COLA, our state tax association, attends and presents at that. And that were some of the questions that came through in advance of that relate to that specific issue and how we're going to handle that. As an organization, we've it's pretty much up to the individual cities, counties, school boards in terms of home rule of how they're going to handle it. But for right now, everyone's just saying, well, for right now, everything's going to stay the same for ease of simplicity. It's going to create a lot of complications moving forward. People that would normally be working in Lexington may in fact be working here in Georgetown. So that has yet to be resolved, but it is definitely going to be an issue moving forward for us and statewide for all jurisdictions for that matter.
Okay, but it's a bucket of worms. Once you start on that conversation, you get entrapped in it pretty quickly.
You do, and it's, the administrative burden is going to be significant for both the employers and for the tax administrators, the jurisdictions as well. So going to be interesting to see how that plays out and moving forward 2021 and perhaps beyond, because a lot of people, frankly, they're never going to go back into the office in certain scenarios. Even once everyone's vaccinated and COVID is no longer an issue, a lot of organizations are seeing that employees have actually been more productive not being in the office. Projects that had been sitting idle for a while have gotten done. So it's definitely had some benefits for both the employers and the employees. And there is going to be a paradigm shift for sure.
Well, apparently it's even causing a paradigm shift in high-end office space rental in urban areas.
Yes, that's another area of concern. I know in Louisville, there's been a lot of talk over the past few years, a lot of news articles about how the commercial space was in decline before COVID due to a number of factors. And a lot of companies are moving to other locations within the city, or they're just consolidating and figuring out people can be just as productive and work just as well and make all their meetings sitting in their dining room.
Yeah. Well, thank you for monitoring that emerging trend for us, Scott, because it could have a real impact on what we do here.
It certainly is, and it's something we'll definitely be watching very closely.
Good. Scott, could you also help address in your commissioner's report? Thank you. I really wanted to talk a little bit about November aggregate collections being surprisingly higher than we thought. And
yes.
What that really means to the county and the school board and the city, and how we interpret that data.
Well, I haven't had much of a chance to look at it as we closed up on December the 4th, but my guess would be that we probably got some folks that were late filing their net profits, as there's no penalty for filing after October 15th. So I would anticipate part of that may be net profits that would have normally been spread out back in October or even September, but I don't know that for sure. But it is a significant increase, and I double checked the data when you compare it to the deposits from this same time last year, and it is a 30% increase of 1.3 million, about an additional 600,000 for both the city and the county, about another 125,000 for the school. So it was an excellent month for collections. Jessica, I don't know if you saw anything come across your desk other than some of the legal.
Well, I was going to say that I think for me, what I saw, not just for myself, but for the other analysts, is that November was my biggest collection month since I've been in the position. And I think that combined with the PVA project and other smaller legal collections are continuing to pay those dividends because there were several accounts that I was actively working on a 30, 60, 90-day basis that became completely compliant. And in some cases, it might have been 50,000. In other cases, it was 80, 90,000. And so I think that in October, November has helped offset what we have lost in net profits and payroll withholding. Because those projects have really started, those months of work during the summer have started to show the dividends as the third notices have gone out in October. And so they've been, coming forward to get those resolved prior to commencement of legal action. So that's definitely part of it. I think also the recons, we did a kind of Operation Warp Speed of our own to try and get the recons processed. So there were a lot of payroll recons processed in October, which meant November payments. So I think that's also part of it, because we had all of the staff doing payroll withholding reconciliations to get those caught up. And so there's always large payments that come in as a response to those.
Yes, we did an all hands on deck approach where everybody concentrated on one analyst recons to get them all done. And then we moved to the next one and the next one. And we didn't start that until they had their net profit reviews done as well. So that project was Jessica's brainchild. We executed on that, and it's really worked very well. So I think it's a combination of those things. I think and we shared that data last month with the October and November collections, just on the PDA project and some of Jessica's legal collections. But those are definitely 2 or 3 of the biggest factors contributing to that.
It's nice that some of the outcomes are just initiative of staff and follow through from things that we've already begun. I just wanted to discuss it because at first glance, it might give rise to irrational exuberance or something like that. And I just wanted to make sure we looked at that number in any context that you and Jessica could help us understand.
Yeah. Glad to do it. And we'll certainly continue to monitor this every month going forward to see what the trends are and to continue to report to you on the efforts that we're engaging in and hopefully see this continue as an upward trend.
Judge, we're really looking at the beginning of our amended budget that we promised we'd look at mid-year. And so these discussions become very real to us, as at least on our side. I know we can restate some of our revenue expectations from the dire prospects that we were looking at 6 months ago. And that restatement of revenues will alter our budget picture. So all this is very important.
Of course, I've also updated on page 2 the new and closed businesses. And as of the end of November, we're at 879 new businesses registered with the Revenue Commission, which is 43 fewer than this same time last year and 34 additional closings this time last year. But we're still averaging 80 new businesses a month for the first 11 months in a pandemic, which I think is astounding. As we talked about before, there would be jurisdictions in this Commonwealth that would be thrilled to have 80 new businesses a year. And we continue to have 80 a month. It's pretty amazing. So the only other thing, since the first bullet point here on page 1 was the COVID update, which I've already given you, would be to give you a brief update about the new space. We did get our internet installed yesterday. The general contractor is pulling permits, mobilizing subs and materials. Courson, who's going to do the security upgrades, those materials, the CCTV cameras, the badge access plates, all of that's all been ordered. Andrew and I have been meeting for the past 2 weeks via Zoom with integration partners who's handling the VoIP. So we're working on the phone programming. So we are moving forward. When we had the exposure, I was determined that it was not going to slow this process down, and it has not because of the Zoom and all the things we have in place. I've been able to continue to move forward and communicate with the vendors and keep that. So it has definitely not stood still for the 2 weeks that the offices has been closed. That continues to move forward.
Good. Thank you. Gina, anything for general discussion or other questions about Scott's Commissioner's report?
No, it looks, I was just kind of under the same impression. we're still going up. I thought by now we would be seeing a decline in our revenues, which is welcoming. No, that's great news. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Judge?
I think you're on mute, Judge.
I said, I'm cautiously optimistic and I appreciate the detail.
There you go. Okay. Scott, anything other for general discussion or the good of the commissioners today?
No, that's all I have, other than, I wish everybody at the Revenue Commission wishes everybody happy holidays as we move forward through the next 2 weeks. And starting in January, we'll be back on our, even though it's a special called our normal fourth Wednesday of every month, we'll start back on that regular schedule, which will be the 27th.
Sounds good. Well, Jessica, I wanted to compliment your very festive bow this morning. Somebody's got to be of the spirit, and thank you for doing that for us.
I thought about wearing my Santa hat, but I decided against it.
There you go. Andrew, anything that you think we need to add today?
I think we're all set. I'm super excited that they're moving forward on the move.
Okay. If there's nothing else to come from come before the commission, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Thank you, Judge.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Gina. And we're all in favor. Merry
Aye.
Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas.
Christmas
Happy
to you
holidays.
Well,
Yes, sir.